Hello and welcome to the Oracle Report for the month of July 2026. So happy you're tuning in. Thank you. Welcome if you're new. Happy you're here. Hope you like it. Hope you get something really lovely out of listening today. So I come on here towards the end of every month, typically, or the beginning, you might see it post, and just share different messages that I've gathered. Sometimes it's themes that come through in readings, sometimes from dream messages from myself or for others that I'm connected with or reading for. Sometimes it's through channeling or astrology, but all of the messages are intended to help you align to your soul and dance with life. So you're always welcome to listen to past oracle reports, even though I'm tuning in and sharing things that are looking at the upcoming month. There's kind of this timeless wisdom that does exist in these oracle reports by nature. So you could always pick intuitively and just tune in to one in the past that's calling to you and see what it might have to offer for you in particular. So I start by pulling a card for the collective, and today we are working with the Animal Spirit deck by Kim Kranz. Not sure if I've ever pulled from this deck for the collective, so excited to see who comes forward. And then after I review just a little bit of the description of the card and talk about it, then I'll go into some of the different themes and messages and wisdoms that have come forward for this month of July. So I welcome you to keep in mind that these messages are collective, so they apply to us all in different ways. Sometimes a message might really resonate or it might show up for you quite a bit and personally, and then other times it's like not so much, or you just have small threads or you notice it more on the outside of you, but it's not really like alive for you. And sometimes it's not even literal, like the ways that the messages might show up for you could be some kind of weird creative play on words, but they're there. So, you're welcome to listen with your heart, take what works for you and leave the rest. Okay. It's also really fun too, I always like to say, to kind of compare what I bring forward with your own intuition and what you feel coming up for the month of July. We all get this kind of, as we're reading energy, it's like we get different viewpoints on the same thing. And understanding, receiving, hearing someone else's viewpoint can be really supportive in building out our own, especially if we're working on developing our intuition or our psychic insight and senses. All right, so let's start. I will draw a card for the collective for the month of July 2026. Something that will support, enlighten, align us, reveal what we need to know for this month. Okie dokie. I got earthworm. So cute. Right, I'm just going to find this in the book and read a little bit. These are actually pretty short descriptions, so I might be able to read all of it. Here we go. Okay, thank you for your patience. Okay, earthworm. Shy, hesitant, reluctant to share inner vision. We have all felt the woes of the earthworm at some point along the way. The earthworm indicates a newbie or a novice working to establish confidence in a new field. Others around you may seem wise and experienced, but it's important to remember they once felt earthworm energy too. This card is a reminder not to be intimidated or lose hope. Mastery takes time, and you're on the right track. Besides, rumor has it beginner's mind offers the most valuable insights. When in balance, qualities of the earthworm are earnest, intelligent, and valuable. Mm. And when out of balance, self-conscious, apprehensive, and to bring into balance, speak up or risk embarrassment. Got it. So finding that balance, actually it's like, this might be a first in a little while. I don't think there's a whole lot in the themes that came up that I can connect to this wisdom, which is fun and interesting. Yeah, so the energy of earthworm could represent the ways that we might kind of recoil or go inward, stay underground. We don't want to share the vision that we have. And the earthworms can't see, right? So they navigate through other senses. I don't know exactly what, but they navigate under the surface. So what is it? Because I'm sure that's right. There's like wisdom in that. The earthworm gains inner vision. We gain inner vision from kind of going underground sometimes and staying in a place that's more protected, but it can become out of balance if we kind of stay there all the time. So we gain a lot of valuable insight through this inner vision, through staying underground. And then it's also important to come out. And I like this wisdom about the beginner's mind. That actually might connect a teeny bit to one of the messages that came forward, but just like, well, actually two, now that I think about it. One of the messages that came forward was kind of talking about how we spiral into life as we're born, and then we spiral out of life, or as we go on towards death. And how, like, not one part of the journey is more important than the other, or more valuable. And we find our kind of inner center, our inner value, and appreciate the whole journey from almost gaining like a bit of a higher perspective and remembering there's some reason why it's like this month it would be really important to remember that through like a higher perspective, right? There's this journey, this spiraling in and spiraling out of life, and it's all encased, it's all held and supported in oneness. And there's a wisdom in that spiraling for each one of us, our unique spiral of life. And yeah, just like this, we don't need to value necessarily going underground or being above ground, or we don't need to value the inward spiral or the outward spiral more than the other, or being a beginner or being a master. There's a mastery in just being where you are, and being in the present moment and honoring where alignment flows in that moment from wherever you are in the spiral. And your value doesn't come from there. From, like, oh, okay, it's valuable if I'm a master. It's valuable if I'm a beginner, but not the other thing. Actually, the value is like intact throughout the whole spiraling, no matter what. And the more we start to lean into that, the more that it's like we bring our light to the world. Okay, so moving into some of the themes and messages. I'll talk a little bit more about that one as I get to it. All right. So this first message I was coming up, it came in as this one word at first that was, I felt like I should have been alarmed, but I wasn't necessarily. And the word was conflict. And there was something in the energetic for the month of July that represented conflict energy. And you might come into contact with an energy of conflict. Most likely, this will be old conflict that's just kind of like making its way to the surface rather than something brand new. the reason I think it didn't feel alarming was because it wasn't this like fearful prediction of conflict, but it was like the conflict already exists. There's plenty of conflict out in the world. And this month was actually a chance for it to come into our consciousness in a way where there's an opportunity for resolution. So this might, it can show up in many different areas. It can show up in personal relationships. It can show up in your work. It can show up in family relationships, friend relationships. It can show up on the bigger scale of some of the conflicts between different countries, different political and religious viewpoints, and different ecological viewpoints. There's just countless ways that conflict already exists, and there's some opening for, as I was receiving it, every single person and non-person, just like beings on earth, have an opportunity in this opening to steward a resolution. But the kind of caveat was that it will probably feel really uncomfortable. And it's not necessarily a discomfort that is super alive in the moment. It's again like the initial discomfort, breakage, separation, trauma was a long time ago. Maybe this life, maybe another life, maybe cultivated generations ago, lingering on the earth, this conflict energy. So it might look like it's new, but part of the wisdom was to dig a little deeper, because it's likely not, it's likely a pattern that we are kind of healing, or we have the opportunity to heal. And the caveat was like, it will probably be uncomfortable, so you won't want to do it, or like it might show up and you're just like, oh, let me get away from that as fast as I can. And the message was, be mindful of your first reaction. Watch for that discomfort and be curious of where this resolution to conflict might be showing up for you to steward. And it might be like you're in service to the collective by tending some energy of conflict that you feel like drawn to or passionate about, or just showing up for you, or it's like you see it everywhere and then you feel it. There's some kind of pull to it, even if it's not necessarily about you, or maybe it is about you. And what is yours to kind of like soothe and heal and tend in the web of life in terms of this conflict? And how can we all, as we all show up to that together, we start anchoring new vibrations. We start creating pathways where others can do this too. And another piece that I heard is like, don't try to do it all at once with this opening. There's not, you don't have to fix everything, whether that's, your own, the conflicts you have within the world or your life that show up for you, the tension, or whether it's kind of your heart calling to whatever you would like to see change as a conflict in the world. You don't have to do it all. So just picking up 1, 2, 3, maybe, and not overburdening yourself, but really finding like what is the right relationship for you to tend to in terms of old conflicts this month. And connecting with your guides, listening to what the right steps are for you in this process. And thank you for being a part of that service. Okay, so the next theme that was coming forward was medicine of the air. There was this encouragement to receive the medicine of the air, work with the winds, work with the air, for the month of July in order to bring balance, and not necessarily, again, like one place on the spiral or one element is better than the other. It's just more so about knowing how to apply them in right relationship and when they're appropriate, when you've gone too far into the water or too far into the earth, like the earthworm, and then coming out. So this reminded me a little bit of the earthworm too, because part of the message here was being like bogged down in the ways of the earth and needing to lift up into the air in order to gain medicine that the air would like to offer us this month, or being or kind of like sitting in the inflammation of fire. So sometimes the emotions around that could show up as like rage, passion, something that feels like really inflamed in your system and hot and like so medicine with that was, all right, we need to lift up out of the fire to come into the medicine of air, and then also the water. And the water that some people might be stuck in that's getting out of balance type of energy, is the word that was coming through was drama. So like being stuck in the kind of drama of the world, or the subconscious, kind of being sloshed around in our own waves, or the like waves that are coming from the collective unconscious or subconscious as well, and there not being enough clarity. And again, it's not like water has medicine, fire has medicine, earth has medicine, but this is talking about for the month of July in particular. It's in highest service for a lot of us to lean into the air and see where we might have gotten out of balance with some of the elements in our lives. Like, are we just kind of wallowing in our subconscious, or being really like drawn into dramas out in the world, and is that serving us right now? Or are we getting like frustrated about the way things are, or we're just kind of like going into our shell and maybe feeling like trapped in the some of the systems, the human created systems on earth, and feeling, yeah, like stuck, heavy, bogged down. So if you're feeling any of those things, connect with air. And maybe there is a certain helper that you connect with, like eagle or owl or hummingbird or blue jay, and maybe you ask them for some assistance. Say like, what is the medicine of air that would be in my highest good to receive for the month of July? And listening, what do they have to say? What do they have to show you? As soon as you put the intention out there, the energy comes back to you. So even if you like don't hear anything right in that moment, there's something. You can just open yourself up to receive it. You might receive it then in the next day, you might receive it in the next week or a couple of weeks, or you might notice you receive it. Really, it's like, again, as soon as you ask, it's sent to you. So you've already technically received it, but when you open yourself up to allow that reception, then it's like your conscious mind can become aware of that receiving, which is an important part of the process a lot of times. Not every time, but sometimes we need to be aware of what we're receiving, because that helps kind of like anchor it and helps us integrate it and open up even more to it and feel more clarity about any action, beingness or non-action that we need to take based on that. Okay. So I'd like to say, before I wrap up with the medicine of air, there was a pretty strong visual that came in about us needing kind of a momentary detachment from the human and leaning into remembrance of who we are. Like, yeah, we're here, we're human, we need to have an ego, we need to identify as human and as this body and this life. And sometimes it's really important for us to lift up out of that. which again brings me back to the earthworm, like staying in the earth, staying in the inner vision, or staying in some of those planes, but then also knowing when you need to lift up and say, oh, right now I'm really identifying as being a human, but actually I'm so much more. And see if you can just start to make space for that in your consciousness and your energy as you create space for these things, as you allow, like you give the permission to receive them, they happen too. So we need right now, they say, a little bit of detachment from our human, from our ego, so we can have some spaciousness, so we can call in some of that remembrance to our lives and then see how it will guide us differently, especially if we feel like we're, again, those things I was saying before is like you're feeling stuck or bogged down, trapped, or you're feeling a lot of like being drawn into a lot of drama, or even just kind of like confusion, like you're just like, what is happening? I don't even know. And or inflammation, frustration, anger, or just like way too much energy too fast, and you can't really make sense of it or align. So those are the things that might show up that are an invitation for air medicine, for lifting up into your higher mind, to your higher consciousness, and calling upon that, because it is there for all of us. And if we can just even create like a sliver for that remembrance to come in, that can seep everywhere. You only need the little opening. You are so much more than this body. Okay. So this next message that came up was about leaning into our magnetism, our attraction, and positive states of mind. So, in particular, I think this came after the air medicine message with a purpose, because we might need to do or call in, allow, make space for that air medicine or wisdom for us before we lean into this. Because in this kind of, with this message of being magnetic, leaning into a positive mindset, we're also in that process, even if we're not consciously doing it, because they wanted to focus more on the magnetic positive rather than the releasing. But we are releasing. There are things that are just going to kind of disintegrate naturally and float away as we lean into this positive state of mind. So there will be like a softening in our energy fields, like a liquefying, a soothing that starts to release energies of, they were saying, like hopelessness, feeling jaded, of negativity, that's of judgment, and these could be inside or outside. Okay. So they also spoke about, with this, making sure that we have enough time for inward reflection, kind of like that inner vision, the medicine of the earthworm. We need like an inner sanctuary in order to like generate our magnetism. So we're attracting people, situations, experiences into our life that are truly in service to us and that light us up. That, like, even if they are challenging, you don't even mind, because you're just like, yeah, I know this is aligned. I know my soul wants this for me, so it's all good. So that magnetism doesn't have the space it needs if it doesn't if you don't have this kind of like sanctuary time. It adds like a protection of the heart so that you're able to be in your full magnetism and alignment. And there's like a message along with this to be mindful, so much mind stuff of yeah, like the way that negative thoughts or those feelings I just mentioned, like feeling cheated or hopeless, how they might seep into your energy space and watching your mind. Like, am I going there? Am I going into like fear or like, oh no, I can't do that because this is gonna happen and that's gonna happen. It's all gonna fall apart. And it just, it's terrible. So like paying a bit of consciousness, a bit of loving attention to your mind and just noticing if any of that is alive for you. And if it is, go back to that asking the medicine of the air, asking about what is the opportunity for me here to release old patterns or resolve conflict. Okay. Yeah. So just to say these words because I like them, it's like we need that protective inward space so that we have a refuge, which allows more blessings to reach us. So it's like our magnetism works, it almost like activates it when you have that space where you can just be. Okay. All right. This next piece was kind of along the threads of some of the old patterns that might be up for resolving this month. And this message first came through as saying, all is held in the loving protection of the divine. Just breathing that in for a second. Because it's like parts of us forget that all the time. We forget it. Well, I shouldn't say all. That's like, it keeps coming back in different ways where we might forget that for a moment. And that's not a bad thing. That's the work of being alive. It's saying like, oh, I forgot. Okay, I'm gonna remember again. Oh, I forgot. Now I'm gonna remember. I forgot. I'm gonna remember. It's all good. That's what we do. It's the dance that we get to enjoy while we're here. So in that understanding, there was a piece about knowing your right responsibility. And so like not extending yourself, for example, if you see someone else suffering or struggling and you don't feel aligned with extending yourself. And one of the things I heard too that kind of piggybacked on this was like kindness and compassion are free and freeing. Being a doormat to the ego comes with a cost. So how that connects to this potential for us to extend further than is really right responsibility. If we feel maybe it's like, oh, but I care, or I want to be kind and compassionate, or and it might not even be about others. It might be about like ourselves, what really is in like right alignment for us to be responsible to. But are there ways where you think you're being kind or you think you're being compassionate, but you're actually in service to somebody's ego or in service to your own ego? And what is like true kindness and compassion to self and others? And there's also, I saw this bright eye and it shined on the word judgment. So it's like bringing light to the ways that we might fall into judgment. And they're saying, the guides are saying that if this happens, it might be a signal that you've kind of overextended or fallen out of your right responsibility in a situation. And yeah, and then just seeing like, how can I come back into right responsibility? How can I untangle? Or how can I act in a way that brings me back into alignment, like what's really true. And then being able to let go and really find peace. And that's where the first part of this message kind of comes in again. All is held in the loving protection of the divine, because then we're able to let go of another's journey and really know our right place in it, and know that, okay, like if we don't rescue them, or if we don't extend ourselves in kindness, they're still held. They're held by life. Everyone is. We are held by life. And if we feel that someone hasn't shown up in right responsibility in relationship to us, this is also true. We are still held in the loving protection of the divine within the all, and we can find our way to kind of shift into right relationship with that. And we don't have to feel like a loss necessarily, like that's like getting drawn into the ego places a little too much sometimes. If we end up in this place of like, they were supposed to do this and they didn't, and that's maybe like some of those judgment pieces coming in again. So again, like a reminder for us to be like, nope, doesn't matter what they choose. They are only responsible. They're responsible for themselves, their own karma. I'm responsible for me. So even if I feel like I was let down, some other opportunity is going to open up. Some other door will open because I'm held in the divine. I'm not reliant on anyone else in that way. I just find my right relationship with responsibility. That's all I need to do. What do I need to respond to? How do I need to respond? In a way that's truly in alignment with my soul. I don't need to be pulled into the dramas of things. Okay. Alrighty. This next message, kind of fun, goes along with some of the same threads, but the main word that came in was freedom. And this invitation to lean into the remembrance that no matter what plays out here on earth, we are free. There is a place in us that is free forever and always. Even when we have experiences here on earth that feel otherwise, even when we see others having experiences that feel otherwise, we actually all have sovereignty as souls on earth. Excuse me. So I was hearing along with this to invoke the energy of a mountaintop, like when you climb a mountain and you get to the summit and just kind of the wind blowing and that feeling of kind of like wide expanse and freedom that I think most of us get. I don't want to say all, because I don't know everyone else's experience, but I know I experience it, and this is what the guys were sharing as they're like, invoke that energy and call it into your life as a way to honor the remembrance that you are free. And then as you do that, you're anchoring, you're allowing that vibration to be in your field, to be in your life. And then it might show up in ways or situations and actually make the experiences easier. But it's not that we have to change the experiences in order to feel this freedom. We're being asked to feel the freedom and then trust that the right experiences will match that for what you need. Even if you don't feel free at certain times in your experience, if you can create this small window and start to let that energy grow inside you, like that truth, you are free no matter what. You own your sovereignty as a soul on earth. There's nothing that can happen to you that the divine isn't okay with, that your soul isn't okay with, or you haven't said yes to. And we're co-creating this life, so you can shift and you can decide what vibrations you want to work with. Okay, They said maybe even climb an actual mountain. We have a place in us that's eternally free, no matter what. And that isn't bound to the temporary. It's eternal. That isn't bound to the material world or to the ego. Again, this kind of understanding of like a little bit of a detachment from that this month is in service. We do need to go into those. We do need to identify with the human, to look at the attachments and to just be, human and attached in some ways to our body and to our life. Like we need that. And for this month, it seemed like the wisdom that's coming through is let's lift up a little bit because we're getting too much in that place. And it's binding us rather than liberating us. So it's the sole remembrance of our eternity, our inherent love, truth, and freedom. And if we can start to feel that in some way, we can call it back in. So this freedom feels like expansion. It feels like kind of like a clean slate. Like you don't have anything weighing you down or pulling on your energy. You just feel like this peace that comes over you. And this is a place in all of us. So we all own this eternally. It's there. And you're being called into it. How can you lean into that? Free yourself from those attachments, even just if momentarily, the bindings of the world and the ego. Remind yourself of that freedom that you are, and maybe the more that we choose to do that, we actually start to experience that freedom in our waking life more. We call in the physical situation. Again, it's like doing it from spirit rather than trying to change all the physical situation so we can feel free. Feel free to change the situations, and we might be able to start to shift some of the harm and the impression and the judgment and the negativity in the world, because this freedom is like a medicine. This remembrance of our inherent freedom is a medicine that the earth needs right now, that humanity needs, and we have the power to be a vessel for that. I think that's all for that. Just say that the freedom is in you. It's there. No one can take it away. Okay, and to our final theme message that came up. This one was fun. It came through in a few dreams, and it came through in a dream last night from a past loved one. And it applied in a few different ways, which often is the case with psychic messages, at least in my experience, in the way that I work and the way that I've seen many others work, and my understanding of psychic messages and spiritual messages, because they don't just exist in the physical world, in the linear. They exist in the multidimensional, so they're going to be able, you can see all the different sides of them, all the dimensions, and it's all this like one piece, or one whole message or energetic, but it has many ways that it will apply. So that was the case for this message, and I like the way that it was conveyed last night in particular. And this I mentioned earlier on, but life is a spiral in and a spiral out, and okay, pieces that are important to say in this that I haven't already. One is that this remembrance can support us to almost like take life a little less seriously. It matters, I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but it's like we can free ourselves from like judgment and perfectionism and like yeah, I'm really feeling the judgment piece in particular. And it was like, we've done it wrong or bad, or I have to do it a certain way in order, and all the kind of pressure that can build up. This was a message about freeing ourselves from that through kind of just pulling up into that higher perspective. Again, a little bit of air medicine, lifting up and checking it out, saying, oh yeah, just no particular place in this spiral of life is more important than the other. And it's all held within the divine. And there's oneness throughout this. Like it's all perfect and it's okay. And this isn't all that I am. This is a really cool thing that I get to experience, this being human, this being Angela, being whoever you are. It's amazing. But I am eternal. I am light. I am love. I am truth. I am expansive. I am so many things. And as we find that remembrance, we can free ourselves from the kind of, like egoic attachments and bindings that start to work their way in. Or like the smaller picture. We need that sometimes. We got to look down at those details. We got to dig into the subconscious. And then sometimes we need to lift up and check it out from above. And remember, right, I'm all of this. And in this too, there's this message about holding opposites. And I have some clients who are really drawn to working with dark and light. And not dark as in evil, but they feel called to do work with those opposing energies and to call the light back to places that there has been distortion and separation, and it's ready for that. And they can dance through the dark and the light. And some of them kind of get like these philosophical understandings, these like spiritually philosophical understandings about the way that the opposites work. And the things that appear to be different, so like the spiral in is one, spiral out something else. Actually, it's all one. It's all held within the one. And how to like taking a moment to remember that, and then how does that support us in our life? It frees us. And it might have some deeper wisdom. So yeah, I want to leave that there. So that is it for the month of July. I'd like to thank you for joining. I really appreciate your ear, your heart, your presence. I share the oracle card, the full description, if you want to look at it. I read everything today because it was pretty short. So there's not much more to read, but even just being able to kind of slow down and take a minute with it might start to reveal other meanings for you. So I take pictures of those and then I post on Instagram and send through my mailing list. And I also post that on Sacred Lights. So if you want to tune in and read more, check one of those places. And let's see. Yeah, holding gratitude for you. I hope you have a beautiful July. And requesting a like, a share, a comment, something that helps me lift these messages to others. It would be really appreciated. Happy July. Lots of love your way.